it matter why parents threaten their kids? Or is it wrong for any reason? Does it matter why the Bible allows rape and murder of women? Or is it revolting even in a sacred text? Shouldn't we put this ancient book on the shelf of history where it belongs and no longer teach its X-rated stories as ethics? If you're looking for me, I'll be the one not teaching the Bible to children any longer.
Welcome to the Women Beyond Belief podcast. My name is Wendy Marsman. Dr. Karen Garst is the editor of the book titled Women Beyond Belief, Discovering Life Without Religion. Karen's book is a collection of personal essays from 22 women from diverse backgrounds who tell their stories of leaving religion. Karen also has a blog which can be found at faithlessfeminist.com. This episode is the 8th in a series where Karen reads 2 posts from her blog. The first blog, Instilling Shame and Guilt is Child Abuse, is written by Karen as she discusses the essay by Anne Wilcox, one of the 22 women authors in Karen's book. Anne was in a fundamentalist religion, and even 30 years after leaving it, she is haunted by the shame and guilt that was instilled in her at a very young age. The second blog, called Teaching an X-Rated Book to a G Audience, is written by Marcia Abelman, another of the authors in Karen's book. She talks about her aha moment when she was asked to teach the story of the Levite and his concubine in a Sunday school class. Given the current issues in our society today, these women's stories are relevant in helping to understand the systematic brainwashing that goes on in fundamentalist religions. I'm grateful to Karen for sharing her blog posts and those who are featured as guest bloggers. Thanks so much for listening.
My name is Karen Garst, and I am reading a blog post entitled Instilling Shame and Guilt is Child Abuse. 2 of the many manipulative tools that religion use, particularly fundamentalist religions, are shame and guilt. Psychologists describe shame as an inward focus on what is wrong with ourselves, and guilt as a more outward focus on what we did that was wrong. While some posit that guilt can be constructive and allow us to change our behavior, most agree that shame has no redeeming qualities. Recent scientific research shows that these negative emotions may have lasting impacts not only on the person who experiences them, but also on future generations as well. This essay will examine the experience of Anne, one of the authors in my book, Women Beyond Belief, Discovering Life Without Religion, in discussing the ways in which religion instills these emotions in its followers. In many religions, people are taught that not only do they commit sin, but they are sin. This tenet is based on the transgressions of Adam, and particularly Eve, in the Garden of Eden. Because this first couple disobeyed God, they tainted human nature forever with sin. Sin can take the form of something you did that was wrong, or something that you didn't do that you should have. While Irenaeus, Bishop of Lyon, was the first church leader to discuss the concept of original sin in the 2nd century CE, St. Augustine expanded on the concept, which was also a favorite of Protestant reformers such as Martin Luther and John Calvin. This concept is unique to Christianity, even though the story is contained in what Christians call the Old Testament. The letters of Paul in the New Testament first expose this concept as underlying the need for Jesus to come to earth to die and become resurrected, and describes the impact of this teaching on her childhood. As a child, I felt guilty for small transgressions, even things that were normal childhood behavior, such as wishing I could stay home from church on Sunday night to watch Disney, or snitching an extra cookie when Mom wasn't looking. I wanted to be pretty, but I worried that I might be committing the sin of vanity, and I felt conflicted about trying to look nice. As I grew older, I struggled to be good so I could stop feeling flawed and wrong, and I developed a debilitating perfectionism. Even though I was pretty sure I wasn't headed there, hell seared my imagination with its vivid imagery and kindled a subliminal fear that pervaded my young life. Sometimes I felt viscerally disturbed about some of my faith's teaching, such as people being stoned to death for something minor, or people going to hell when they had never even had a chance to be saved. But those doubts never surfaced into my conscious awareness. I was too afraid. I doubt that anyone reading these words would conclude that this is a healthy way to raise a child, yet children are subjected to this barrage of messages every day. How can any child develop a sense of self-worth when they are constantly bombarded with such negative messages from the very people they trust, their parents, their pastors, and their larger community? How can they have any peace of mind? How can they develop empathy for others when they feel so ashamed of themselves? Anne explains, "Trust and obey," we were told over and over. We were also told that we must die to our sinful selves. It was a sin to trust my own heart, to trust my own mind, to follow my own will. The problem is, my mind, my heart, and my will were the fundamental tools I needed for knowing myself, for connecting with other humans, for making wise choices, for having empathy and showing compassion, for setting clear boundaries, for living a whole and satisfying life. But when my religion demanded that I believe things that were irrational, mythical, or contrary to human decency, it had to undermine or destroy these fundamental tools. What else would they have done? If they hadn't bent my mind, I might have wondered why there are such an amazing number of things in the Bible that make no sense. If they hadn't suppressed my feelings, I might have decided that human compassion is more important than obedience to dogma. And I might have rebelled at being commanded to love a being who sends billions of people to hell. Teaching children that they cannot trust their own ability to think, feel, and decide their own lives, and threatening them with something as fearful as hell if they do trust themselves, is an attempted murder of the essential self in an ever so quiet form, and fundamentalist Christianity had unapologetically tried to kill that part of me. Dr. Marlene Winell, the author of Leaving the Fold, a guide for former fundamentalists and others leaving religion, describes not only her experience with fundamentalism, but also those of many patients that she has seen in her career as a family counselor. She explains the impact of this religion on children. And I quote, "Ultimately, a rigid religion erodes the natural contentment and confidence with which every child begins life and which every healthy being needs." When Anne reached puberty, she had the further trauma of feeling betrayed by her body. Because she was a woman, she had internalized all the teachings that are associated with Christianity's need to repress sexual feelings. The Greek and Roman world in which Christianity arose had what we would consider today a fairly healthy attitude towards sex. The early church fathers, however, wrote volumes on how sex is only for procreation and that female bodies are unclean. Martin Luther emphasized the link between original sin and lust, and women, of course, were held responsible. Darrell Ray, a psychologist who writes extensively about the damage religion does to a person's attitude towards sex, states that, and I quote, "Religions of all kinds use our powerful sex drives to infect us with ideas that benefit the religion and hurt and inhibit our ability to be truly human." Thus Anne, raised in an extreme form of these teachings, was ill-prepared to enter into marriage. Even though she married a man who didn't want her to be submissive, she had never learned how to truly care for another person or how to solve problems when they arose. She says, "As the years went by, Eric and I struggled more and more with the issues in our marriage, and the obedience over feelings doctrine that I had learned as a child began to tear my life apart. Without an awareness of most of my own thoughts and feelings, how could I love? I felt as though vital parts of me were lost, and I began to despair." Unfortunately, the marriage did not survive. Since her divorce, Anne has been able to understand the damaging effects of the religion she was raised in and has left it behind. This was a long process involving reading many books by others who questioned their religion, including the works of Marlene Winell and Valerie Tirico, who wrote Trusting Doubt. She also found solace in writing down her experiences and thoughts about religion. Recently, research has been conducted that shows that trauma can not only influence an individual, but it might actually change a person's brain chemistry such that successive generations can inherit a predisposition to exhibit the same signs of trauma. This research began with a study of children of parents who experienced the Holocaust. Neuroscientist Rachel Yehuda of the Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York studies showed that, quote, the descendants showed a greater sense of insecurity and instability and focused on the potential for impending danger even when no danger was present. The study of epigenetics, changes from environmental factors that switch genes on and off, shows that these changes may be passed on to the next generation. In addition, these changes affect each gender in different ways. As an example, one study showed that brains of teenage girls exposed to high levels of family stress when they were toddlers showed changes in their brain chemistry in areas responsible for emotional regulation. Gender differences in certain types of diseases show that women are diagnosed twice as frequently with depression, anxiety, and panic disorders. In the past, child-rearing techniques condone physical punishment. Today, a state's child protective services will intervene when children are severely mistreated by their parents. Yet there is no prohibition for the psychological damage done to children through the terror of indoctrination into extreme religions, such as that experienced by Anne. While I doubt whether any state will ever promulgate such a prohibition in my lifetime, I can still hope that this type of radical fundamentalism will die out as more and more people in the United States express themselves as nuns. Anne is one of 22 authors who describe their experiences in Women Beyond Belief, Discovering Life Without Religion. I hope that not only you will purchase the book, but that you will encourage any woman who has been caught in the web of shame and guilt to read it as well. Anne's journey has been long and hard. We should do everything we can to assure that children are not subjected to this practice, which I will gladly call child abuse. This is Karen Garst, and I am reading a blog post on my website, www.faithlessfeminist.com, and it is written by Marcia Abelman, and it is entitled Teaching an X-Rated Book to a G Audience. As a former evangelical Christian, I have regrets about the time and energy I devoted to that worldview. But like others whose lives were circumscribed by religious families and cultures, I have to cut myself a little slack about my early years. I've written elsewhere how I longed to go to Sunday school as a small child because the Sunday schools I visited with my grandmother and cousins were so much fun. Once my parents resolved their denominational differences in the way they attended church, I began a lifetime of learning and teaching the Bible in Sunday school. But one day, a Bible story I taught would be key to my leaving religion. From my teens, I taught Sunday school. When our church began deaf and minority programs, I taught Sunday school in sign language and sang Cristo me ama. In college, I taught disabled residents at the state home as young unmarrieds. My husband and I held home Bible stories and both taught Sunday school. Hardly a year went by in my Christian life that I wasn't teaching Bible classes to children. It was easy to read the Bible to kids using innocuous verses like love one another, or stories like Noah's Ark. After all, cute animals being saved from a terrible flood. What's not to like about that story? And there are pleasant tales of Jesus doing cool things like riding a donkey into town or feeding 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. These stories naturally lend themselves to flannel board storytelling, coloring book pages, and handcrafts like making arcs from popsicle sticks. And singing. Bible teachers utilize music, which imprints knowledge in children's brains, as we all know from the annoying commercial jingles that float around in our heads. The Bible, yes, that's the book for me. Jesus loves the little children, and if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, were songs that got children excited and engaged. Father Abraham had many sons, or Zacchaeus was a wee little man, were songs that taught children Bible facts. As I sat in the Super Christianity, I believed that everything I was taught and subsequently taught to children was divinely inspired. I believed humans were sinners who needed fixing, and hell was a real place humans could only escape hell by believing in Jesus. Therefore, I felt an urgency to teach everyone, including children, that they were sinful and had to obey God's words, as found in the good book. I was uneducated about the Bible's origins and compilation. I suppose that it came to us in the format I saw, from cover to black leatherette cover, and was to be believed without question. I was many years into my Christian life before I heard any information about when the individual books were written, who authored them, who discovered them, or that people had actually questioned their authenticity. Just as learning takes effort, unlearning can be a tough process. For some, disbelieving and leaving religion is gradual. Some have blinding moments of clarity, and some, like me, need a combination of both. Small, nagging doubts did not prevent me from ardently teaching the good book for years, but it was during a Bible lesson that my qualms about the good of the book came to a head. I had joined a group of women in our church to team teach third grade Sunday school classes. As close friends with kids the same ages, we enjoyed getting together and collaborating. And then it happened. We taught a lesson that became an aha moment for me. Looking out at the trusting, upturned faces of the 9-year-olds, including my own child, I taught them a story from Judges, a Levite and his concubine. In a nutshell, a man in Ephraim gave overnight shelter to a traveler. When some guys in the town knocked on his door and yelled, "Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have sex with him," the homeowner was horrified and said, "No, my friends, don't be so vile. Since this man is my guest, don't do this outrageous thing. Look, here is my virgin daughter and his concubine. I will bring them out to you now, and you can use them and do to them whatever you wish. But as for this man, don't do such an outrageous thing." And he did send the concubine outside. The townsman raped her and abused her throughout the night, and at dawn she fell dead on the doorstep. Her master, the man who had been saved from rape and mutilation, took her dead body home and cut it into 12 pieces and set the pieces around to parts of Israel. Wait, what? Yes, I knew the story symbolically described the 12 tribes of Israel. Yes, I already knew the Bible had tales of rape, incest, adultery, and stories about women's inherent uncleanliness and unworthiness. But here I stood trying to create a relevant moral tale from a story of rape and abuse of women, from a book that considered women flawed and expendable. I was teaching this to 9-year-olds, including my own child. Even as illustration, the story was vile and outrageous, to use the Bible's own words. I could no longer cut myself any slack. I realized there was no logical reason to teach this X-rated book to children. I was finished teaching Sunday school. I soon cast the antiquated book aside as my adult instruction book, too. I wanted my child's view of women to be informed by his feminist parents and by humanist writings, not by superstitious, misogynist stories. A recent Facebook meme contrasted a mother saying to her child, "If you disobey me, I will take you underground, torture you, and burn you," with the same mother saying, "If you disobey me, God will take you underground, torture you, and burn you." We view one threat as child abuse, but the other threat as a godly incentive, because it comes from the Bible. Does it matter why parents threaten their kids? Or is it wrong for any reason? Does it matter why the Bible allows rape and murder of women? Or is it revolting even in a sacred text? Shouldn't we put this ancient book on the shelf of history where it belongs and no longer teach its X-rated stories as ethics? If you're looking for me, I'll be the one not teaching the Bible to children any longer.
Thanks so much for listening to this 8th episode in the series of audio blogs by Karen Garst. You can read these 2 blog articles as well as numerous other ones on her website at faithlessfeminist.com. This Women Beyond Belief podcast can be heard directly from the website at womenbeyondbelief.com or from iTunes, YouTube, or Stitcher. If you would like to assist me in the cost of producing this podcast, you can contribute through supporting via Patreon. I have switched the type of payment from monthly to per episode. On average, I produce 3 to 4 episodes per month, but you can also put a cap on the monthly amount if you'd like to donate. Feel free to visit the Patreon page, or you could also give a one-time donation through PayPal. Both of these links are on the website. I am so thankful for all of those who have contributed so far, and my new contributors as well. Thanks to Dorothy and Jessica, Dang, Heather, Sarah, Leslie, Leah, Sohan, Jason, David, Phil, Julie, Isle, Sheila, and Virginia. Your financial help has helped cover the cost of the web hosting, media hosting, Skype recording programs, graphic designs, and now is starting to cover some of the costs of my time in editing and producing the episodes. This has been quite a journey in the last 8 months, and I'm really excited about how the future looks. I'm thankful to my daughter Esther Nicholson, who's composed and produced the songs I used for the theme music for this episode. It's exciting to hear how this podcast is reaching so many people and helping women have a voice as women who are beyond belief.